I have been a slave, I have been a servant, I have been a curiosity, a thing to stare at, a thing to touch, a thing to scrub. And then one man looked at me, not at my skin, at me. He gave me a name, he gave me a sword, he gave me a place in a country that did not know what I was. And then they burned it all to the ground, and the man who came after looked at me one last time and said the only words that mattered. He is not Japanese, send him away.
Welcome back to After Hours. I am Vaughn. In 1579, a man arrived in Japan who had never been seen before. Not his clothes, not his language, his skin. He was tall, over 6 feet. In a country where most men stood barely 5 feet tall, he towered over everyone. His skin was dark, darker than anything the Japanese had ever seen. And when he walked through the streets of Kyoto, the crowds were so massive that buildings collapsed. People were trampled to death trying to get a glimpse of him. Nobody knows his birth name. Nobody knows exactly where in Africa he came from. What we know is that he was brought to Japan by Jesuit missionaries. He was a servant, possibly enslaved, and he had spent years traveling from Africa to India to Southeast Asia to China, pulled along the Portuguese trade routes of the 16th century. And then he met the most powerful warlord in Japan, a man named Oda Nobunaga, the man who is unifying Japan by force. Nobunaga did not treat him like a curiosity. Nobunaga gave him a Japanese name, Yasuke. He gave him a sword, a house, a salary, a rank. He made him a samurai. This is the story of the only African samurai in the history of Japan, a man who rose from nothing to serve alongside the most powerful lord in the country. A man who fought in battle, who stood his ground when the empire collapsed around him, and then vanished from history like smoke. This is Episode 7, The Samurai. In September of 1577, a Jesuit priest named Alessandro Valignano set sail from the Portuguese colony of Goa on the western coast of India. Valignano held the title of Visitor, the Jesuit inspector of all Christian missions in the East Indies. He was traveling to Japan to oversee the growing Catholic missions there. With him was a man whose name we do not know, a man from East Africa, most likely from Mozambique, possibly a member of the Makua people. He was tall, powerful. He had been in the service of the Jesuits for years, working as a bodyguard and attendant. Missionaries were not permitted to carry weapons, so they relied on men like him for protection. The journey took nearly 2 years, from Goa to Cochin, from Cochin to Malacca, from Malacca to Macau, and finally, in July of 1579, they arrived at the port of Kuchinotsu, on the southern island of Kyushu.
We are here. The mission begins now. Stay close to me. Do not speak unless spoken to. The Japanese are a proud people. They will find you remarkable.
They already are. Look at them.
Valignano had underestimated what would happen. As they traveled north from Kuchinotsu toward the capital of Kyoto, word spread ahead of them. A dark-skinned man, taller than any Japanese warrior, a man whose skin was the color of ink. When they reached the port city of Sakai, near modern-day Osaka, the Jesuit procession was mobbed. The Jesuit priest, Louis Froid, recorded what happened in his letters. People climbed buildings to catch a glimpse. The crowd was so large that the buildings began to collapse under the weight. People were crushed. When they entered Kyoto, it was worse. The crowd surge was so intense that several people were trampled to death. A newly built Jesuit church was nearly destroyed by the mob pressing against its walls. Yasuke had to take shelter inside, but the crowd followed, surrounding the building, refusing to leave until they were allowed to see him.
The commotion caused by the black man was so great that the fathers were alarmed. The people would not disperse. They demanded to see the man with the ink-colored skin. The streets were blocked in every direction.
Think about that. A man walks through a city, and people die trying to see him. Not because of what he has done. because of what he looks like. He is not a person yet. He is a spectacle. But that was about to change. Oda Nobunaga was the most powerful man in Japan. By 1581, he controlled the central provinces and was systematically crushing every rival clan that stood in his way. He was a military genius, ruthless, unpredictable, and utterly contemptuous of tradition. He burned Buddhist monasteries. He melted down temple bells to make cannons. He despised the old aristocracy. He was fascinated by foreigners, by European weapons, by anything new. In March of 1581, Vaughn traveled to Kyoto to seek an audience with Nobunaga. He brought Yasuke with him. The chronicler Ota Guichi recorded what happened next in the Shinchokoki, the official chronicle of Lord Nobunaga.
On the 23rd of the second month, a black man came from the Christian lands. He appeared to be 26 or 27 years of age. His entire body was black, like an ox. He was robust and had a good demeanor. His strength surpassed that of 10 men.
Nobunaga stared at him. He had seen European traders, Portuguese merchants, Jesuit priests, but he had never seen a man with dark skin. And Nobunaga did not believe it was real.
Strip him. Strip him to the waist.
My lord, I assure you this is his natural complexion. It is not dye, it is not ink.
I said strip him, and bring water, and cloth. Scrub him. If the color does not come off, I will believe you.
They stripped Yasuke to the waist. They scrubbed his skin with water and rough cloth. They scrubbed hard. And the more they scrubbed, the darker and more lustrous his skin became. Nobunaga leaned forward. His eyes were fixed. He was not disgusted. He was not afraid. He was captivated.
Remarkable. Tell me about him. Where does he come from? How far has he traveled?
He is from the land of Mozambique, on the eastern coast of Africa. He has traveled through India, through the Malay Islands, through China, and now to your shores. He has been in my service for several years. He is loyal, strong, and he is learning Japanese.
The Jesuit priest, Lorenzo Mexia, recorded what happened next. Nobunaga spoke to Yasuke directly. And Yasuke, who had been learning Japanese during his time in the country, answered him.
You. Can you understand me?
Some words, my lord. I am learning.
Good. Then you will learn faster here. Tell me about the places you have seen. Tell me about Africa. Tell me about India.
Mexia wrote that Nobunaga never tired of talking with him. The conversation went on for hours. Nobunaga threw a feast in his honor. And within days, he made a decision that shocked the entire court. He took Yasuke into his personal service. Nobunaga brought Yasuke to Azuchi Castle, his personal fortress on the shores of Lake Biwa. Azuchi was the most magnificent castle in Japan. 7 stories tall, gold leaf on the walls, painted screens by the finest artists in the country. It was a statement, not just of power, but of vision. Nobunaga was building a new Japan, and Azuchi was its crown. And inside those walls he gave Yasuke something extraordinary.
You will serve me directly. You will carry my weapons. You will stand at my side.
I am honored, my lord.
You will need a name. A Japanese name. From this day, you are Yasuke.
The Shinchokoki records that Nobunaga granted Yasuke 3 things. A stipend, a formal salary, the mark of a retainer, a sword, a ceremonial sayamaki blade, and a private residence. In the rigid hierarchy of 16th century Japan, these 3 things meant something specific. A salary from a lord, a sword, a house. Together, they designated a warrior in the service of a feudal lord, a samurai. Now, historians will debate the exact nature of Yasuke's rank. The word samurai covered a wide range of positions in the Sengoku period. But what is not debated is this. Yasuke served as Nobunaga's weapon bearer, a kosho. And to be a kosho, You had to be a samurai. You had to be trusted to stand at the Lord's side, to hand him his weapons, to protect him. It was one of the most intimate positions in a feudal household. Nobunaga paraded Yasuke through the streets of Kyoto. He sent him out with a personal attendant, displaying him not as a curiosity, but as a symbol. A symbol of how far his reach extended. Nobunaga was a man who imported European guns, who wore Portuguese cloaks over his armor, who burned Buddhist traditions to the ground and built something new. Yasuke was part of that vision, a warrior from another world, proof that Nobunaga's Japan was not limited by the old boundaries. There were even rumors, recorded by Jesuit Lourenço Mexia, that Nobunaga was considering granting Yasuke a fief, a land grant, a domain of his own. An African man, possibly born into slavery, possibly captured and sold across an ocean, was on the verge of becoming a landed lord in feudal Japan. And then the wars continued. In early 1582, Nobunaga launched his final campaign against the Takeda clan. The Takeda had been one of the most powerful families in Japan, legendary for their cavalry charges, feared across the eastern provinces. But their power had been declining for years, and Nobunaga intended to finish them. The campaign culminated at the Battle of Tenmokuzen in March of 1582. Takeda Katsuyori, the last lord of the Takeda, was cornered in the mountains of Kai province. His forces were shattered. When it was clear there was no escape, Katsuyori drew his sword and took his own life. The Takeda clan ceased to exist as an independent power. Yasuke was there. He rode with Nobunaga's forces through the campaign. He stood alongside Japanese warriors in the field. And when the campaign ended, he marched with the victorious army back toward the capital. The Matsudaira Itada diary, kept by a vassal of the Tokugawa clan, recorded seeing Yasuke on May 21, 1582, accompanying Nobunaga on his return from the Takeda campaign. Ayatada wrote that the man's body was like ink, his height 6 shaku 2 sun, roughly 6 feet 2 inches, and his name was Yasuke. By the summer of 1582, Nobunaga was at the peak of his power. He controlled central Japan. His enemies were dead or fleeing. His general Toyotomi Hideyoshi was pushing west, conquering new territories. His other generals were expanding east and north. Japan was being unified, and Nobunaga was its unifier. Standing at his side, carrying his weapons, sharing his table on occasion, was a man from Mozambique who had crossed oceans to arrive at this moment. Neither of them knew that in less than 2 weeks it would all be over. June 21, 1582. Nobunaga was staying at Honnoji, a Buddhist temple in Kyoto. He was between campaigns, waiting for reports from his generals. He had only about 30 retainers with him, no army, no fortifications, just a wooden temple and a handful of guards. One of those guards was Yasuke. Nobunaga's general, Akechi Mitsuhide, had been ordered to march his army west to reinforce Hideyoshi. Instead, at dawn on June 21st, Mitsuhide turned his 13,000 soldiers toward Kyoto and surrounded Honnoji.
My lord, wake up. There are soldiers in the streets, thousands of them. They carry the Akechi banner.
Akechi. So, it is Mitsuhide.
My lord, what do we do?
There is nothing to be done. It cannot be helped.
Nobunaga knew instantly that escape was impossible. 13,000 men against 30. He picked up his bow and fought. He fired arrows from behind the walls until a stray shot struck his arm. Then he picked up a spear. When the walls were breached and the temple began to burn, Nobunaga retreated into the inner chambers. His young page, Mori Ranmaru, was at his side. Nobunaga ordered the doors sealed. He knelt. He drew his blade. And Oda Nobunaga, the man who had nearly united all of Japan, took his own life. The temple burned around him. His body was never recovered. Yasuke was not inside the inner chambers. He was still fighting. When the temple fell, he did something that no one expected. He ran, not away. He ran toward Nijo Castle, where Nobunaga's eldest son and heir, Oda Nobunaga, was garrisoned with a larger force. Some accounts say Yasuke carried Nobunaga's sword to Nobutada to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. He ran through the burning streets of Kyoto through Mitsuhide's army to bring his dead lord's weapon to the man who should have been the next ruler of Japan.
Lord Nobutada, your father is dead. Honoji has fallen. Take his sword. You must flee.
An enemy who has committed such a rebellion will not let us escape so easily. It would be a disgrace for me to be killed by common soldiers while fleeing.
My lord, if you stay, you will die.
Then I die. But not running. Stand with me, Yasuke. Fight.
Yasuke stood with Nobutada. He fought against Mitsuhide's forces at Nijo Castle alongside the last of the Oda loyalists. The Jesuit accounts report that Yasuke was wounded in the fighting. But Nijo fell. Nobutada, like his father, committed seppuku rather than be captured. And Yasuke was taken alive. They brought Yasuke before the Akechi forces. He was wounded, he was disarmed. A soldier told him to hand over his sword.
Do not be afraid. Hand over your sword.
The question went up the chain of command to Mitsuhide himself. What do we do with the black man? He fought for Nobunaga. He fought at Nijo. He killed our men. What is the punishment? Mitsuhide looked at the report and made his decision.
He is not Japanese. He is an animal who knows nothing. He is not worthy of death. Send him to the southern barbarian temple. Let the Jesuits have him back.
He is not Japanese. After everything. After the sword. After the name. After the house, and the salary, and the rank. After carrying his lord's weapon through burning streets. After fighting and bleeding alongside Japanese warriors. After all of it. He is not Japanese. Send him away. Mitsuhide may have been acting out of mercy. Some historians believe he spared Yasuke to curry favor with the Jesuits, and through them, the Portuguese traders. Others believe he genuinely saw Yasuke as beneath the dignity of execution. In samurai culture, to be killed by your enemy was a form of respect. To be dismissed was the ultimate insult. Yasuke was sent back to the Jesuits. The priest Luis Fra wrote about it 5 months later, thanking God that Yasuke had survived. And then, nothing. No more letters. No more diary entries, no more chronicles. Yasuke vanishes from the historical record completely. We do not know if he stayed in Japan. We do not know if he returned to Africa. We do not know if he went back to India, or Macau, or somewhere else entirely. The only African samurai in the history of Japan disappears like smoke. As for Mitsuhide, his reign lasted exactly 13 days. Nobunaga's general Toyotomi Hideyoshi raced back from his western campaign, caught Mitsuhide at the Battle of Yamazaki, and destroyed his army. Mitsuhide fled and was killed by bandits in a village called Ogurusu. The Japanese have a saying for something that does not last: Mitsuhide's reign. 13 days. That is how long it took for Nobunaga's killer to join him in death. He came from Mozambique, or maybe Sudan. We do not know for certain. He crossed the Indian Ocean, the South China Sea, and the waters of the Pacific. He arrived in a country where people died trying to see him. He was stripped and scrubbed to prove his skin was real. And then one man saw past the skin. One man gave him a name, a sword, and a place. One man made him a samurai. When that man died, Yasuke did not run away. He ran toward the fire. He carried his lord's sword through burning streets. He fought alongside the last defenders. He bled for a country that was not his. And when it was over, they looked at him and said, "He is not Japanese," as if a sword and a name and blood on the battlefield meant nothing. We do not know what happened to Yasuke after that. History forgot him. The Japanese chronicles moved on. The Jesuit letters stopped mentioning him. He became a footnote, a curiosity, an oddity in the margins. But he was not an oddity.